All right, everyone, want to be respectful of your time. We usually have some people that continue to come in a few minutes after, but we're going to go ahead and get started today with our latest episode of Vested Interest. I could not be more excited to share the screen and this time with a good friend and colleague, Edgardo Rayo. I'm going to give him and say things about him that he would never say about himself, and this is why I love him. He's the most humble gentleman in the world. He is someone who I believe was the first and may still be the only CFA to come out of Nicaragua. He is, everyone talks about having a diligence process in the investment world. And when you start turning the screws a little bit and asking them for details on their diligence, it's a secret, right? They don't have many details. It's not a process that they could lay out. Our diligence is not a secret, but Edgardo is our secret weapon. And today we're going to talk about just the diligence process that is very quantifiable, identifiable, that Edgardo leads and has architected through the years with our founders. And I think you will find that extremely helpful in understanding how we as MDB and public ventures look to find ideas and technologies that could ultimately be potential market leaders and attract a big market cap for that. So welcome, Edgardo. Appreciate you making the time today to join us. And welcome everyone else. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items, including the fact that I need to make sure that we keep compliance and the lawyers happy. So Edgardo and I do not look good in orange. Rodney Baber asked me why I'm not wearing pink today. I like blue instead. So I do want to cover the fact that we will be making forward-looking statements today at some point. We will not be making any explicit recommendations. We may be discussing companies that we personally own or that the firm owns or that we've done investment banking business with. We will do our best to disclose those up front, but just assume at any specific company that we talk about that there is a conflict of interest at the firm or with one of us individually. We do want to make sure that you understand what we offer as a brokerage and a broker dealer. You can find out all those conflicts of interest by checking out our Form CRS, which is available on our website. And then any risks and uncertainties associated with forward-looking statements we make today, you can find in our latest SEC filings, including our most recently filed 10K. So with that being said, we've got all those bases covered. I want to start right in the beginning. We made a bold statement on our conference call that nobody can curate public venture opportunities like MDB. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Edgardo, and I want you to just tell us how in the world you came around IP as being of value. What's the construct here that gives us the ability to make those kinds of statements?
Thank you, Lou. This is very kind words. And I really love what we're doing here because our community has really been great in referring a lot of deals, and now believe that giving some insights into sort of how we do it, why we do it, some of the things that we look at and we consider. I think that's going to be great to establish better communication with the community and people that are referring deals to us, and sort of the community that we've created that we're connected to of people, universities and whatnot, that we're in constant connection and looking at their technologies. So one, it's really we have a great team. We've been growing our team. Now we have 7 great analysts that have been with us for some time now, and they're really great. And also the process, I think we now have honed it in which we can really go broad. But also we can go very deep into these technologies, right? So,
right, and at the core of that, and look, I want to give you credit here. True to form, I told you you're humble, and you gave credit to the team as well. So I appreciate that. But let's just jump right in, right? Like you can say we can go deep, and that's because of patents, right? We have access to one of the only globally translated patent databases. Right. The headlines are 95% of patents are worthless, but we think that 3 to 5% are valuable. Why? And how do we do that? Like, why patents?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to deconstruct, what brings value for the companies in our space, right? And you have to think about value not in a static way, because we want to look at, what's going to be a leader, not only today, but in 3 to 5 years or so, right? And when we look at the companies in our space, and we sort of describe our space as deep tech, usually earlier stage, could be a pre-revenue company or a company that's, not yet making cash flow positive. So at that point in time, what really confers value is that leadership position, right? Is the technology really unique? And then can you really maintain that uniqueness, over the course of time?
So
step
back for a quick second. Define deep tech for people, right? I mean, maybe it's not immediately understandable. Yes. How would you define that?
So the way that I'll define deep tech is there is an invention, right, that it's enabling, whether it's a new product or, being able to cure an unmet need, or being able to give you better data on, let's say a disease indication, right? Or more range for battery technology or whatever, right? But it's that embedded invention that it's enabling that advantage, right? So that's really deep tech. So
it's not software as a service. It's not necessarily a consumer facing large mass appeal product, a social media platform. It's the flip side of that, right? Biotech, yes, med device.
Yeah, physical sciences as well, making a new molecule, synthetic biology. There's a wide range of things that we're looking at, material sciences. It can come from different places, but it's inherently the same process, one invention that's enabling an advantage. And if you think about it, right, and we've thought about it for a long time, what we can do and what we've developed, right, in PatentVest, which is, now an IP law firm, but we have a framework and to look at our technology, and we have created our own, software tools that follow that specific framework that allows us to not only we'll look at a specific claim, which kind of gives you the boundaries of that invention. So we looked at that, right, which is static, but also we look at it in the context of everything that is being developed. So we can see the history, right, what people have developed before that invention and how much, that now new invention contributes in the overall space, right? So we can understand, who's a competitor, who might be a partner, how what that delta from an invention perspective, what that is. And
let's tease that out a little bit more, because I think that's something significant, that people understand that it's not just a process that we run that looks at an individual idea or technology, but you talked about the context, right? So, and then a framework. Right. I want to get to the framework in a minute where there's the specifics, but talk to me a little bit more about that context of what you're doing. So you're looking backwards, seeing the innovation in that particular space. You're looking presently, which allows you to see this company, technology, or idea, as well as the competition. And how does that context help you look forward and see what's going to happen? I mean, it's
because when you start, and again, it's the framework of the workflow. When you start understanding specifically what each company is trying to innovate on, you can see, where they're going, right? And you can see where everybody's going, it's different from, what this new invention is going and what it might enable, right? So that allows you to have your own kind of crystal ball where, you can make smart decisions about what's going to happen in the future. So if you think about it, right, and this is why we come back to value, everybody talks about moat in business, right? But as you said, 99% of IP, it's worthless. Why is that? It's, nobody's really paying too much attention. So the founders, the inventors are not fully embedded in the process of understanding, what specifically, their IP covers, what those boundaries are. And if they're not 100% aware, that means, venture capital community is not really asking those
So, I mean, are they
questions,
as
right?
so? I mean, is it fair to say in a lot of cases these inventors and companies are flying blind, that they're myopic and only focused on what they're innovating, and they don't have vision to what anyone else is operating? I mean, would that be a fair assessment of what you see?
Yeah, sadly, I think it is a fair assessment. We talked to, over five, we talked probably a year over 200 companies, and 99% of these companies, they don't fully have a good grasp of IP in this dynamic way of really fully understanding the boundaries of IP and how it relates to what everybody else is doing.
So help here, so that we have a unique and distinct advantage of being able to contextualize a technology, an innovation, a space, build collective wisdom, and then communicate that to companies. Now, how does that translate to giving us an ability to see what's valuable and what's not? But bring it back down to investors, right? We have a superpower or a crystal ball
Right.
to see forward. How does that create value?
So, there's two things, right? It allows us to focus really quick on the ones that, they really have good IP. So then we can go very deep on those, companies, right? So it allows us to go from a wide, funnel to something that's manageable, that we can go, much more in depth. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, especially right now, tactically, we're really trying to optimize for the equation of, what's going to be the value at a certain point in time, right? What's your payout? It could be, a year, 2 years, or somewhere, in that time frame. It could be, really establishing your proof of concept. And then, what's going to be the capital and the time required to get there. And then most importantly, trying to make sure, that, what's going to be the probability of that positive outcome. So IP gives us the first thing, which is, can they be a leader, in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time? Because even if you have a great advantage, right? And then, we come back to that advantage. A lot of the value that can get realized, it's going to be that advantage that the technology provides, right? If you have a significant unmet need and you have the only way of curing that, disease indication, that's going to be a huge advantage, right? But
right, versus incremental change in a crowded space. So
right. So it's two things, right? One, you want to make sure that you maintain that advantage, right? That's the first thing, because again, we're trying to look into the future, not into the present. So if you don't have good IP, you might not have very good solutions for that specific problem today, but that not be the case, in 3 years' time, right? Which is
so
kind of where you're going to prove your.
Yeah, I just want to, again, I'm going to interrupt you a little bit here because there's a lot of nuggets that you're throwing out that I want to make sure people catch. If you don't have good IP, how quickly can you and the team discern whether or not company has good IP? And does that ability get faster over time? The more you flex that muscle.
Look, I think, and our team, can look at a claim, spend 5 minutes with it, and at least have some guidance as to, whether that's totally worthless, right? Or, it's very narrow. Now, if it's sort of in the middle, we might have to do more work, but we have a framework and a workflow that, in a couple of hours, we can definitely have a pretty good understanding of what that might look like. We might then, once we identify that as a possible interesting strategy and potentially, might be unique. Obviously, there's significantly more work that needs to be done to fully, understand the entire landscape. But we're not going to do that with, the 7,000 big ideas that we're
right. So that's what I'm going to bring it back to. We talked about, we've gone through 7,000 big ideas and roughly, several thousand publicly traded companies. How quickly did it take to get through that first screen, and then it gets down to really, what's the next level? So if 95% of patents are worthless, you're screening out 95% essentially very quickly. How much that in 5 minutes to a couple hours, which is, is pretty impressive. Then how much work goes into getting down as we work down this funnel and pipeline to these late stage, focus companies that could eventually become deals with MDB?
Yeah, so we're looking at multiple things in parallel, right? So if we believe that the idea is not foundationally different, right? If the delta for that advantage is not significant, then it's really not for us, right? So we can, and we've now have had all the team a lot of revolutions, a lot of rocks that they've turned. So on a lot of things, if you see a technology that you're already seeing 20 of those, we can see it and understand that that's really not going to be something that we should care, right?
But every inventor thinks theirs is different. Theirs is going to be different. You can see through that pretty quickly, though, is what you're saying. If you've done a lot of work in one space, okay.
Yeah.
And then you go next level. What are the next levels? Let's put some details to initial screen, 5 minutes to a couple hours. Now, where are we going? Like, how do you handle the diligence process?
Again, we're trying to quantify that advantage, right? And we have a process or different processes depending on what the innovation looks like. And one of the beauties about what we do is that let's say we're looking for a drug in one specific indication. We're going to build a database, right, of everyone that's doing a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right, so that we understand the entire landscape and all the nuances, between the clinical trials, and fully understand a disease indication. Same with any other technology, right? We have tools that make that process easier now, specifically on biotech, because it's data, it's a little bit more organized. But there's still a lot of nuances and a lot of journal papers that the team has to go through to be able to fully understand, what endpoints, right? What proof of concepts and how those proof of concepts might translate to actually sort of a functional benefit. So we're looking at all that. And, if we start looking at a new indication, it might take more time. But then we have that database now and that understanding embedded in the company. And now it makes, the next one go much faster. Right. So
in a sports analogy, you guys are putting together scouting reports on every potential prospect in a particular indication. Right. And when a new prospect comes up, matures, then you're able to do that work and know where that prospect fits in quickly in the clinical landscape. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate.
See,
100% agree. And then we sort of go to the time and capital. And I guess also the beauty of this is, it's really fun, right? Because you're constantly adjusting your compass, right?
Some people won't think it's fun to dig into deep patent claims and spend hours, but that's why we love you, because you find it fun and you found other people that find it fun.
Look, I mean, this whole process is highly dynamic, right? So, and the bar, it's constantly being moved, right? So, for example, you're looking at an indication, you might know that if you become the leader, let's say, in this disease indication, that's worth $3 billion, right? You could see it. You could look at the market cap of a company, maybe a phase 2 data readout went positive. So now then you have to think about, okay, do I have better data than that, right? And that's constantly changing because there's new companies, there's new phase 2 data that's coming out. So you have to try to see, right, what's gonna be the status quo when you're gonna release your data, right? Whatever indication, whatever space you're in, it's going to be the same, right? Everything is moving, and you kind of have to, put the ball, where the player is going to be when the ball gets there, right? Not when the player is right now.
They don't have hockey in Nicaragua, do they? Because that's the great Wayne Gretzky quote. You want to go where the puck's going to be, not where it is. So yeah. So again, I want to help people, and let me put this out there right now too. We do involve the community and investors in the diligence process when they can add very quick, deep domain expertise. I want to involve them in this conversation as well. I forgot to mention it at the outset. We do have the Q&A function enabled on this webinar. So if you have questions that come up as we're discussing this, please go ahead and populate the Q&A with that question. Edgardo and I can see that, no one else can. So there's no stupid questions. We'll just ignore those and no one will know that they were ever asked. But we would like to integrate some of those questions that we can tease out some things here. But now that I mentioned that, Edgardo, again, I want to make this quantifiable for investors to understand. Top of pipeline all the way to the bottom, how much time does that take? So a new idea comes in, it passes the initial screen, we get to the point where we finance and fund the deal, or we make that decision that we're going to find and fund it. In an ideal scenario, how much time is required to do that? And I know you're going to say it depends on the opportunity, but so use on averages.
Yeah, it depends on the opportunity. I'm kidding. So, look, I think in reality, we'll it might take a couple of months just because of there are layers and layers and layers, things that we look at, but specifically on the things that we have a high comfort of, or excited about a specific deal. And, we kind of like to use the analogy, when we back a technology, it's sort of a marriage, right? It's not like we're dating. So we front load a lot of that diligence. But once, we're ready to back that company, we think, we're increasing the probability of success with the model and whatnot. So,
yeah, and I think so. A couple of months, and I think that you made two key points there. It's a significant amount of time to get that, but that's going to be dictated by the fact that you continue to see value in that, right? That you're going down that in a way that's, hey, it justifies the effort. And I'm sharing this for the illumination of some people here in Enlightenment that aren't aware of how typical diligence gets done by investment banks. It's normally they say, let's go raise you money, and then it's a backfill. Let's check the box. What info do we need to say that we looked at everything, and then can we sell it? It's more of a sales process versus a diligence process. So I think that's important to tease out. And then one thing here, a fellow New Jerseyan wants to know, how does AI impact your process in the analysis? Is it accelerating it? Is it a threat? Is it a tool? How do you use AI, or how do you see that leveraging or amplifying what we're already doing?
Look, I think it's gonna be complementary. I think AI might help us to put the dots together much quicker. Right now, we've tried to employ AI in some parts of the process. Right now, for example, we want to do a very sort of understanding of where one technology sort of fits in the overall landscape. And right now, it's probably not ready because it doesn't pick up on the very nuances of the data, right? Because in every journal paper, they might be doing the trial a little bit different here, a little bit different there. So you need to fully understand some of the nuances. But it helps us sort of get prepared, right? It also helps us understand, a landscape, sort of the basics much quicker. We're using some tools where, if we're looking for specific data, it compiles, all the journal publications and gives you abstract. But at the end of the day, if you want to become an expert, you actually have to go and read them. So it's
the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? It's knowledge. Right. You can read it in a book versus wisdom is gained through experience, and you have to have the experience of that. Okay, that makes sense. And
maybe sort of a lead into that, sort of wanting to go into some of the other pieces that go into the puzzle, right? So the time and capital. Every time, and most of the time, that we get a company, pitching on the technologies, a lot of the times we change things a bit to try to, be more efficient with time and capital to that inflection point, right? Because we're really trying to know, whether the thing we're financing actually works or not. So
when you say change, like strategically help the company strategically change, I mean, where they might be going, is that what you're talking about? Or
yeah, so what maybe how the clinical trials design, or we're trying to think about how can we get the most information out of that time and capital so that we can try to compress, that time, and that, gives us a go and no go decision, quicker. So there's, and not every indication you can do that, right? So strategically, we're looking at indications potentially where, you might get kind of a more bang for your buck on the information that you might be able to get, right? And so that's also part of the optimization. And then, it's really about tuning that probability of success, right? And here is, where we spend a lot of time. We actually go in everything that we look at, even though there are a variety of experts that could potentially comment about, the technology generally, there is really a handful of people that really understand that specific space, right? So we go out, and reach out to those folks, and it's really about, now that you have all the background information, now that you have a north, now you really know what to ask for, right?
Yeah.
And
we've seen that firsthand, and you experience this where you come in and you're more prepared. I mean, I've been on a few calls with management teams, and their quick quips are, wow, these are questions no other bankers ask us, because you have an understanding of the technology and the science or the science in the background. So it's a key advantage that we have going in, for sure. What I also want to tease out here is, not once have you mentioned sales. Can we sell this idea? So really, you're focused on, is the idea valuable? Is the time and capital needed up to get to the value inflection point worthwhile? But you're not worrying about and this is what I want to, the question is, you're not worrying about what the biggest, latest market trend is necessarily, are you?
I guess, I've always considered myself to be a contrarian. I think, the firm, it's 100%, we're contrarians. We don't go where everyone's going. That's usually not a very good strategy. So I guess one of the things that we usually like to say is, and it's actually true, for every deal that we get excited about, we have a theory of opportunity, right? So we create sort of this theory of, what can this become, right? Why is the data, translatable? Let's say, why the experiments that we have right now, and, whether that's, material science experiment or, a mice, and people say that, mice lie, but, and it's true, but there's
mice that lied to by a mouse.
But there are models that lie more than others, right? And there's so tuning, right? Really understanding what and all this is, we talk to a lot of experts to really understand, what gives us the highest probability of having that positive inflection point, right? So not all proof of concepts are the same. So the beauty of it is, the more rocks you turn, right? And the biggest, if you have a trained team, you have a great process that allows you to turn many rocks, you're eventually going to come down to, now I really can optimize my equation, right, in a way that I've already, seen thousands of things. So I'm going to get to potentially, hopefully, a better outcome, right? So now it's about scaling the team.
It's scaling the team, right? Because you have a proven process. This isn't about you and Chris, having a decades plus experience turning over rocks and experience looking at science. We have a dedicated training program. How long does it take you, before I get into a question, I think, kind of tease like what's interesting that you're seeing, how long does it take us to get a brand new analyst up to speed and plugged into the process to enable them to contribute positively to this diligence pipeline?
So that's, we now have a training program that's established. And really, the training program, it's now pretty wide, in that, we start really with ABCs of, like, you need to know accounting before you can read a financial statement. you need to learn IP, right, before you can really understand technology, right? So we have that embedded in our process, going from the legalities of reading a patent to understanding how to understand a landscape, looking at what information resources, you have and understanding sort of our criteria and why, to then finely tuning. So that process, the ABCs, it's for a couple of months now. We've compressed it now, so we can, analysts can start being productive, really quickly, right? Because at least, after those couple of months, they can start producing information that we can digest, and then it's really tuning, right? Tuning, and we're running two parallel processes. So the analysts, they start looking at a deal, and they start pitching the deals, right? And the questions that you're asking, then building that fear of opportunity. That is the constant training that goes on, right? That it's not static, right? That's the fine tuning.
So you can get someone from ground, to hit the ground running and contributing in several months once they have a baseline understanding, and then the actual repetitions with the team again continues that increased understanding. So I do want to make two shameless plugs here. One is people that you mentioned it. Two of our colleagues, Tyler Teskey and Sergio Rios, have put together a internship program at PatentVest where it really condenses down what you're talking about, the ABCs of understanding patents. We do offer those internships exclusively to MDB shareholders and clients. So if any of you have college-age students that want a unique skill that they can guaranteed use anywhere they go in business, just reach out to us at community@publicventures.com and we'll make those necessary connections. And I completely forgot what the second shameless plug was going to be. Oh, never mind. It came back to me. It is, and this is tying into a question, how can shareholders provide you with a tip of a company or an idea to screen? Basically, how do shareholders add value? And so we have a button on our website, submit an idea, where you can do that. But then I want to get to the other side, because you started to talk about it. You interview experts and you get deep domain expertise by talking to community members, shareholders of ours, as well as experts. How does someone get in touch with you to let you know that they have an expertise in particular in a biotech space that's of interest? What's the best way to self identify?
So I think that to us, because we're looking for experts in very specific spaces, I think what's really important to us is really understand what that expertise looks like, so that we can actually reach out to that person. That's what's really. So
that's an action to take for anyone listening live now and then listening to a replay. If you have an expertise, and everyone's an expert in something, you spent 10, 20, 30, 40 years doing something, you've acquired a knowledge just like we're amassing in different places. Reach out. Let us know. What is your background? What is your interest? What keeps you passionate? How can you add value? And we will certainly, as opportunities come up that fit into your wheelhouse, Edgardo and the team will reach out to you. So I would tell you again, that's another unique aspect of our diligence process, is that we pull in and engage our community. We recognize we don't know what we don't know, but there are people in our networks that will help us get to those answers very quickly.
And Lou, we're running two parallel processes right now, right? We're looking at private companies, technologies that we can look at, finance, incubate under the MDBH holdings. And we're also looking at all public companies, let's say below 500 million, that are in the deep tech space, as we've articulated, what that is, at least to us. And we're trying to look at all of them that have IP, and we're trying to understand, what might be the interesting ones that we think have better technology. So that's a process that we go through every week. So, again, if anyone knows one of those companies and, would like to submit them or would like to comment on it, we would like to provide an introduction. We're always looking, and that also gives us that wide perspective, on what's being developed, right? Both in the public space, the private space, and
so this is totally contrarian, though, right? Why do you want to involve community people outside our network that might not be familiar with our diligence process? Whereas that, the traditional VC or investment bank approaches, we're the smart money, you're the dumb money, let us find the opportunities, you just put your money in it, right? So how did this come about, and why? Why is that, and how important is it to have the community involvement?
Well, I think I really think it's great because we're looking at the two sides, right, of the coin, right? We're creating the deals for that community, and we're creating the community for those deals. In order to have sustainable public companies in this, small cap space, you need to have, patient investors and investors to be patient. They need to
Those
know
don't exist, Ed. Those don't exist. You're on the research. They don't exist. Just kidding.
Well, you need to know you have a gold nugget, right? The more that you believe in a company, the more patient you're going to be.
Agreed.
At least I know that from experience, right? The more that you believe in something, the more you're going to hold that asset.
So by involving experts in the community, then we're deepening our conviction because we now know that company. I mean, is that right? How? I mean, is that what you see? Or on the other side of that coin is by speaking with experts in the community, we can quickly rule out, or more quickly rule out, something that we just wouldn't realize was a potential landmine.
Right. No, I mean, it would make our process go faster and smoother. The more people that we can talk to, and the more expertise that's available to us, that would obviously provide improvements and would potentially allow us to even look at a greater number of companies, and have more conviction in the ones that we actually, so that we can turn more into actual deals.
Yeah. No, and I think that's an important distinction. I think at this point, I just want to flip. I know some other things you wanted to make sure we cover, but flip to our criteria, right? It's we have a process that you've articulated, but we have criteria that depends on whether or not those ideas get into the top part of the funnel and move past that. I think it's important that everyone knows. And we're not going to belabor this here. We've talked about these before. They're available on our website. But as you're investing in other opportunities or seeing deals in your own field, these are the things that fit our model. So if you think you have something that fits this model and fits these 6 key criteria, or if you don't know if it's got the bottom right strong IP position, Ed and his team can very quickly, in a matter of 5 minutes to a few hours, ascertain that for you. So we want to be a value add not only on the ideas that we're internally generating, but on ones that the community bring in as well. As Ed said, it's this positive feedback loop. You're here for the deals, but the community can help us diligence the deals better and bring in more community members that increase our ability to do that and then generate even more deals. So I think it's this nice virtuous cycle. At this point, I want to just encourage, we're kind of nearing normally our normal limit of about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So if you do have any questions you've been sitting on, please submit those. I do want to, at this point, really open it up to Ed. I want to ask this because you said you're a contrarian. What are you seeing through the, you said you had the crystal ball, so I'm going to pin that on you. You admitted you have one. What are you seeing that you don't think anyone else is aware of yet in terms of innovation in any type of space, life sciences, med device, hardware, energy infrastructure, batteries? What excites you that you don't think anyone else is aware of yet?
I think right now, it's a great opportunity because valuations are fairly low, so you can, get into things that have, are more developed, have more data. Right now, we're kind of looking at. We've seen medical devices that traditional, that are more like biotech, and the delta that they can provide, it's significant. So I think that's pretty cool. We're also looking, at some spaces, that are developing. We see CNS to be
CNS. If I don't know the acronym, central nervous system.
Yeah, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all these diseases, that are related. one of the things is that's happening, right? We're living longer, right? People are exercising more. We're living longer, and we'll need to figure it out how, and what, we're also going to get more Alzheimer's, right? Because now people living longer and Alzheimer's being a disease of aging, we need to be able to, kind of try to impact, that healthy aging condition. So I think we're going to see a lot of research there, with the new amyloid beta drugs. I think that's sort of the first.
Dude, you went into nerd mode. I don't understand amyloid beta, so no. So you're seeing a lot of innovations in Alzheimer's, which is traditionally an indication that there aren't any. I don't believe there are any approved drugs for treatment of, right? It's all on the come, hopefully.
No, the first one, Leqembi got approved for Alzheimer's that decreases.
Yeah, that was controversial though, wasn't it? So you're seeing things that are more exciting in that.
The first one was controversial. The second approval, right, was, the data that's actually, fairly good, but I mean, it decreases 17%, the progression, which is better than nothing, right? I mean, for a long time, people now didn't believe that the amyloid, plaques, I mean, these plaques that build up in your brain that you can see, in imaging, that wasn't really the cause. Right now, we know that at least if we remove some of those plaques, we have some effect, right? So it's the first time that we're actually seeing, beneficial effect on the progression of Alzheimer's. So I think, now, hopefully, right, we're going to see more innovation in those specific spaces. And I think trends come back and they leave. I mean, we've on immuno-oncology, for example, even though right now that's after a lot of companies were created in the space, I think that combining early stage diagnosis with immuno-oncology is really what's going to have a big impact, on cancer, right? It's not going to be about, have a regression on the late stage patient, that's great, right? But the greater change that you'll have for society is early diagnosis and then using immunotherapy to make sure that patient doesn't progress, right?
Yeah, and that's exciting for people to hear, because I think, just as much as Alzheimer's, I think, the widely understood belief is that at some point we all have a cancer. Our bodies naturally eliminate those, so that, and then when we get immunocompromised, we're unable to do that. So hearing that you're seeing a lot of innovation and combination in there, it makes sense.
And targeted approach is really what makes sense there, right? Because you want to start early, and you don't want to have side effects, when you're starting out early. So, targeted immunotherapy and early combined with early diagnosis, I think that's
we got a question. We got a question here that I'm gonna let you take a stab at first, because I'm usually the one that gets put in this hot seat, and this will fall under the disclaimer of forward-looking statements. But MDB stock is sliding. What's the plan to turn that around? So, how would you answer that, and then I'll answer it. We'll get two perspectives on it.
Well, I think we're incubating great companies. Shortly here, we're going to be launching, one that we have been incubating for a long time. I think that has a very great, could have a very great impact on the valuation of MDB. I don't want to, make any forward-looking statements, but if you ask me, that's I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for that one.
No, you're not going to get in trouble. I'll get in trouble. No. So, listen, I think this has come down. We've said from the beginning, MDB is not a stock to trade. It's a stock to own, because what you're essentially buying is buying into this process, this ability to filter and discern and sift through thousands of ideas to find the handful over the course of a year that are already publicly traded and that aren't publicly traded yet, that will have, as Ed articulated, key inflection points that are meaningful. They're significant, or as we like to say, there's a big asymmetric risk versus return profile. And I think it's a matter of the mechanics of this process playing out. So as Ed alluded, we're getting ready to spin out the first big idea via IPO, Invizyne Technologies, and hopefully, again, forward-looking statement, unlock the value that we've seen and we thought was inherent in the technology from day one. And that would then be reflected, as our CEO, Chris Marlett, articulated on the last quarterly call. If you haven't listened to it yet, we have Invizyne recorded on our balance sheet at about a historical cost, like real estate, at $5.9 million. If it goes and trades publicly at 100, 200, 300, 400 million, you do the math, you'll understand where the value inflection is, and that will trickle down to MDB. So if I'm forced to answer it as a shareholder, equity, stake, as all of us are here at the company, it's belief in the ability that what Ed has articulated here comes to fruition. So we like to say we see over the horizon on technologies. Ed said you need to be patient. I think it's a matter of just patience and waiting for Invizyne and then the next big ideas and the other companies that Ed and his team identify to demonstrate that there's value here for the rest of the investing community that doesn't understand fully what MDB does, how we go about it, and that's part of the effort that we're trying to make here.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about the current time. Even though sort of companies in our space are not doing great, what we've seen right now is we have a lot more opportunity to choose, right? And this process has been years in development, and we're at a stage where now I think it's mature, and that we now have we can pick from a lot of things that are getting developed, that are now potentially later stage, and I think that it's going to be great times for the value that we can create with the process that we have collectively developed.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good distinction.
And the platform.
What people don't understand is you've been at this for how long? Have you been digging into patents and IP?
11 years.
11 years, right. So there's 11 years of accumulated wisdom, refining of a process, all of that. It's the architecting before the reveal. And I think what we're coming up upon now is the reveal. Invizyne will lead that. We will have, I had a question here separately. Why aren't we talking more about Invizyne? Because this isn't about Invizyne. This is about our diligence process. We will have a vested interest with the leadership team from Invizyne. If you haven't already been notified or noticed, we filed the S1, a more recent amendment with the SEC. So we're waiting for that to be deemed effective. And then we'll begin the information and marketing for that for Invizyne. So again, that is not an explicit solicitation to buy. That is just informative that it's coming. This is not the venue to get into the deep dive on Invizyne. But maybe to wrap us up here, Ed, you give just some quick thoughts on Invizyne. Maybe just again, we're going to keep it into what's contained in the S1. The technology. What excited you the most when you saw it, and a quick summation of that. Why has it got you excited now since we've been working on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Invizyne's the best example, right, of perspective and trying to understand where kind of the ball is going. And we had been pitched at that time, with dozens of idea of creating, let's say, one molecule using synthetic biology, right, which is using cells to make something genetically engineered. But it wasn't really a scalable process. And everything that we dig into, it wasn't scalable. It wasn't a platform. So when we looked at Invizyne, that had a platform to change potentially all products that can be done, using synthetic sort of biology that can be scalable, right? So if you think about it, it's really arbitrage of, let's say, there's a product that can solve a need, right? Let's say isobutanol, where you can potentially create aviation fuel renewably, but that's scarce. There's no way of making it. That you can make it, from cheap resources and turn it into a valuable product, by a process that happens naturally in nature, but that you build the platform to do that. And this is what these guys really, created at UCLA, and that we have scaled. We've shown, even early, right? Even, when they were playing with, flasks, they were showing numbers that the traditional synthetic biology couldn't, dream of, right? So now,
so nothing on the potential that you saw from the beginning has fallen short in what's happened since that time. Would you say that?
No, I mean, it's scaled. It's the fear of opportunity that we had, back, then it's really shown to be now proven in a significant wider range of things and at bigger scales, right? So it's scaled linearly, which was sort of the biggest risks that we saw. And it's really about kind of part of that diligence was also breaking down, the into bits and pieces, right? If we could get enzymes at this price point, if we can get this level of productivity, right, and all of that, it's starting to come together pretty nicely, in which we have now forecasts, that this could potentially revolutionize, that specific space, right, and can potentially be, a platform of platforms, right? Because you can, out of that same platform, you can create additional products.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And in light of the time, I want to kind of wrap things up here. I am being pestered by one of your colleagues to say that he's my favorite analyst over you, but I do want to end and not give him that that glory of hearing it. So I do want to end with this. Look, there's other questions that are out here that please follow up at Community at Public Ventures. We can't answer all of them. Some are not necessarily relevant to the diligence, but also are getting deeper into the weeds on our process. And the point of this webinar was really to demonstrate what we do is a process. It's quantifiable. If you have questions about specific aspects, I have a question here about kind of the non-tech aspects that go into the diligence process, please reach out, and we will continue to do efforts like this to illuminate what goes into finding those ideas. But I do also think it was important for everyone through this interview with Edgardo, and then just understanding as a shareholder or potential shareholder of MDB Capital, that there are a significant amount of human capital resources and colleagues and people that are tremendous experts in their field and what they're doing. And there's a lot of effort that goes into every single deal. So I think what's always attracted me before I was working with the firm, and then it's continued as I've joined the firm, is that that a significant amount of research has been done, probably more than any other firm does, before it comes to a point that's an actual investment opportunity. So again, Edgardo, I want to thank you for taking the time to represent the efforts that you've put forth, the hard work that the team that you've built. I want to thank all of our analysts that contribute. Without what you guys do and women, we couldn't do what we do. And so again, by the same token, without the loyal shareholders that are here in attendance today, that are listening later on to the replay, we couldn't do it without you either. So please know that we take our job seriously. We take the mission seriously. And more than anything, we believe in this process that we have. And so, Ed, thank you. And thank all of you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please reach out at Community at Public Ventures.
Thanks, Lou.
All righty.